Anybody who's saying, "Oh, it's going to just completely automate everything that you're doing," you should just be skeptical of that. And you'll never hear us say that because
it's the modern drop shipping mentality. It's like, oh, build an AI agent to sell the thing. It's selling more AI agents. Blah blah blah. You have a Ferrari. You live on a beach. It's like,
yep.
Nothing is that easy. Honest Ecommerce is a weekly podcast where we interview direct-to-consumer brand founders and leaders to find out what it takes to start, grow, and scale an online business today. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest Ecommerce. Today, I'm bringing to the show an extremely smart gentleman, the co-founder of Raleon, Nathan Snell. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chase. Appreciate you inviting me here.
Now, I purposely buried the lead on what Raleon does. We'll get to that in a moment. But we can talk about your expertise in AI and specifically marketing and marketing automation. Quickly though, I guess, what's your background? How'd you end up in this specifically?
Yeah, I mean, so my background, as you might suspect, is all in sort of workflow automation, AI, marketing analytics. Prior to kind of Raleon specifically, I was actually in the fintech space for about 15 years, doing kind of the same thing, just focused obviously in a different category overall. And when I first got out of college, I was actually in sort of the e-com space. This was like, I won't date myself too much, but like Magento was just like the baby of a thing. So like I kind of wanted something that was a little bit different and wanted to take kind of our skills and expertise of myself and the team around this sort of stuff and bring it kind of back into a space that's just fun from like an entrepreneurial standpoint, the kind of things that people are creating.
Yeah, absolutely. And now your career has kind of gone full circle and you're bringing these marketing automation workflows and using AI to help back to e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today in a nutshell, is how to use AI to run your brand's email marketing. So Nathan, where do we start with this? Do I just log into my favorite LLM and say, run my email?
If only. Although I guess maybe not if only, because then that would make our job a little bit harder. But no, I mean, I think when folks tend to think about AI and using things like LLMs for their email marketing, for marketing overall, but maybe we'll even kind of just focus on the email side for for this, is oftentimes they approach from the standpoint of, okay, well, I've got all these things that I want to have, that I want to have happen, that I want done. And they think too that they have to sort of transform their entire process overall. And I think contrary to say like last cycle, if you will, of technology, oftentimes the easiest starting point is really kind of looking at your process as it is today and not sort of blowing the whole thing up, but instead going, okay, well, if I'm doing, if I'm writing copy for my email, how do I go about doing that in a more efficient way, right? And then how do I go about making sure that copy is more on brand and matches our tone more? So I'd say, the first point that we always think about, and we always even talk to brands about, is just like, look at your process as it is today and pick one part of it or two parts of it and begin to kind of use and experiment with an LLM just as a simple starting point in that particular part of the process.
Absolutely. And then I'm just going to apologize in advance to all of our listeners. I'm just going to default to saying ChatGPT when we're talking about AI, probably for the rest of this episode, but there are a bunch of them out there. That's just the one I use.
Yeah. And I would say too, if it's helpful, we can, I don't know if in the show notes or at the end, but we actually just released a DTC AI benchmark where based on the things like the activities that founders and CMOs and stuff at different brands do, we actually automatically grade basically all of kind of the core models. So whether that's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini. So we kind of run it through a pretty rigorous rubric. So we actually have a really good idea of which models even perform well for which task, because different tasks work better for different ones.
We are a brand. We want to use AI to power our email. We're going to start tackling smaller chunks of our process to take over parts of our email. Is it as easy as I'm writing a campaign about X, Y, Z, and help me with my first draft? Or, how should people start really thinking about this?
So yeah, I mean, in terms of a starting point, we usually recommend folks start in kind of like two places, right? So one, and I mentioned before, is like the copywriting side. And what we tend to find is that like that's an area where it's easy to get started, but it's actually hard to master. So, generally when people jump in, on the copywriting piece, they see, say, a 25, and maybe that's even too aggressive lift at the outset. And what we tend to find is like, when you refine that with agentic systems and tools, that honestly goes from, say, 15 to 20%, kind of improvement to say 90%, right? Where people are really going, oh my gosh, this thing is so on brand. It's nailed the problems, the solution language, right? It's got our tone and voice, the words to avoid, all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of why we say like, that's a good starting point.
When you're saying train it, if we're thinking about email marketing and we're training it, it's delivering to this AI system historical email campaigns or copy that's written in the brand voice. The brand guidelines probably would help tremendously as well. So just doing that upfront work will get you to that better result that you're talking about.
It'll help. What we see within our platform, and we cover this, much more broadly, which we can kind of talk through some of the other parts of the process you can work through. But yeah, if you're doing it just sort of using a straight ChatGPT, more context is going to be helpful. So brand voice is going to be really helpful for sure. Past emails, are going to help there some. But there's also more like fine tuning to that prompt overall. That's going to help in terms of like just guiding it towards the kinds of things that it's thinking about. What we see is it's actually, I find it kind of ironic where LLMs tend to do like a pretty poor job without a lot of like good prompt engineering and even like multi-step prompts. They tend to do a pretty lousy job with like B2C emails, right? With like direct to consumer emails because like they're not often text heavy, right? It's more about the layout. It's more about like the theme and the purpose of that email. So oftentimes what we actually see working really well is using multiple prompts. So you might tee it up with that brand context that you were talking about and kind of an initial starting point, and then actually take sort of the output of that and move it into another prompt that's more guided and everything else. So that's some of what we actually even do within our system for that particular part of the process.
Yeah, and it's truly with AI, it's made things easier, but I won't say it's made things better because it's just shit in is shit out. And I forget who told me this, but it's basically AI is an amalgamation of all of the stuff that exists. So it's going to be at best average. So if you aren't tailoring it towards a better solution with your prompt, you're going to get an average result.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely true. And I think one of the things that we're seeing more and more is, especially when it comes to the prompt side. People talk about prompt engineering.
That's my favorite made up term.
It's true. Honestly, it's like, it is one of those terms where you're like, really? Like, is that really like a thing? But
I know some people are better at it than I am, so I could give them.
And honestly, it's been a craft like, that we've obviously tuned over time. And what we see, even like the better at part, like I've been thinking about it a lot like Photoshop, right? Like, or like a Figma or that sort of thing where, like the tool's there, but like if a designer jumps into Photoshop or Figma, what they're going to produce is going to be a lot better than what I can produce. And it's funny because like as easy as LLMs seem, to your point, it's like garbage in, garbage out. So there is an element now that we're seeing more and more where it's like your ability to actually understand the right context that works well, to tune the prompt and everything else. It's sort of like having a designer that's really good at Photoshop versus like Nathan jumping in who like, can probably put text on an image and that's about it. So,
absolutely. So, it is a lot about the inputs, and obviously there's the historical inputs of the brand voice and everything associated with that, historical stuff like that, but it's also how you're asking for that result. So that's kind of more the campaign strategy. But another strategy that you and I talked about before, that I think that a lot of people overlook with AI is just, it can help you come up with just more emails to send.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's very, again, especially with the right context and that sort of feedback loop of like what's working and what's not working. It does an amazing job at planning emails, and even using, like, if you've teed it up properly for it to be able to understand your brand and the kinds of even events and things that are important to your brand, like what's been working well for your brand. So it actually does a phenomenal job at being able to even analyze past performance. And again, it's not generally in one single prompt. But when set up properly, it can really do a great job planning, not even just like one email, but 20, 30 emails, kind of planning the month overall, or even suggesting kind of particular emails for different slices of your audience. I think we're really, we're entering into a point in time now, I think, where historically it's been very difficult to produce a lot of emails. And the design side, I think it still has some of that. But historically a lot of brands, they focus on like the 30, 60, 90 day, right? It's just like batch blast of stuff that goes out. And it's because like it's been hard and expensive to say, take 20% of that, segment it really well and give them a message they care about. But in reality, it's becoming easier and easier because of AI to be able to produce really high quality emails that are on message for a particular segment that as a result are going to perform better.
Hey, everybody, just a quick reminder. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't. We're releasing interviews like this every week, so don't miss out. Now back to the interview. Yeah, and I mean, if we just look at the larger slice of the pie, and and I'm sure a larger slice of my audience, we're talking about roughly $1 million brands, right? Maybe a little smaller, maybe a little bigger. There's a lot of them out there, and this is a founder-led industry, where a founder is taking time out of their day to produce that weekly email campaign, and maybe they're bringing in an AI assistant type thing to help them do it. But I've seen what your software can do, and you can even do this without that software. But you can take that struggle of hitting 4 campaigns a week to hitting 30 emails a month, and it will take you less time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we certainly, we see that. I mean, there was a brand that just started using us. They're a 7-figure brand, and it was a couple of weeks ago. Again, very much founder led, to your point. And he jumped into the product, and I think the hard thing too, oftentimes, is AI is so overhyped. So we try to very much even just undersell it. So you hopped into the product. We were like, look, just try it out. Use it yourself, and you're going to see whether or not you like it and whether it's on brand and everything else. So he did, and literally the next day, he was blown away. And it's because, to your point, he went, oh my gosh, usually it's hard for me to get kind of one email out a week. And, within a day, he had 4 emails planned for the next week. He had it over to his designer, his designer designed them that evening. All the copy was in it, all the segmentation was set and everything else. So he literally went from the same time it was taking him to figure out 1 email per week. He's now getting 4 emails per week out to his team with all the segments that he needs, fully targeted and everything else. And it's literally taking him no more time. And it's actually higher quality because it's able to produce all the sort of thought and automated analysis that he didn't have time to do to begin with. And I think that's some of the magic that's starting to happen with this stuff.
And before we get into talking about the super cool things you can do with AI and particularly Raleon, I do want to take a step back though. It's AI isn't the end all be all. What should founders be skeptical of when it comes to AI? Because there's just so much noise out there.
There is. Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes we get over indexed on sort of how simple it feels. So I think, anybody who's saying, oh, it's going to just completely automate everything that you're doing, you should just be skeptical of that. And you'll never hear us say that because
it's the modern drop shipping mentality. It's build an AI agent to sell the thing, to selling more AI agents, blah, blah, blah. You have a Ferrari, you live on a beach. It's
yep.
Nothing is that easy.
It's true. It's just not. And I think taste and seniority, I think, is becoming more and more valuable to this because it does help you do things faster. But I think, to the example that you gave before, it's really good at giving you average, which means that if you don't know what above average looks like, or you don't have that sort of above average taste or sense, it's not going to do a great job helping you get above that sort of average point. And I think that's where you see brands that are using it that have phenomenal results. And it's because they've got sort of the experience, the taste, the seniority to figure out not how to just get to that sort of 50% mark quickly, but how to actually then take it to that 80, 90% mark that's really positive, on brand and everything else. And it's just not automated. I think there's, we get wrapped around the idea of oh my gosh, it's 90%, of our job is done. And it's well, it can get you there, it can accelerate it. But again, it's not full autopilot here. There's still actually a lot of piloting from, people that are really great, at what they do to get it to the results that they're going to want.
Yeah. And I think that something that I still do, and I think a lot of marketers do, is I just use these AI platforms to just get me either from 0 to 1, or I'll get pretty close and then I'll pull it out and I'll tune it myself because I know this is close enough. I think a lot of people just keep trying to prompt it to give them a perfect result. It's almost there. Just take it and make the changes yourself. You still have that capacity to do it yourself.
Yep, agreed. And I think some of that, right, is because most AI platforms today don't give you that sort of live editing ability. We can get into it later, but that's part of why we've put some of that into our product, is because you're exactly right. It's the goal is, ideally, we're shooting for 100%, right? But in reality, it's going to get you to 80 or 90%. And then when you have that experience, you can go, oh, cool. This title's great. I want to change this one word. Instead of fighting the AI to hit that one word just right, you can just go.
Yeah, because it changes the headline and does exactly what you want, and then changes the copy. You're the other stuff was great. Now you're copying and pasting things from different parts of the conversation. And
yep, yeah. There is that frustrating challenge where the conversation gets too long and then it loses it's you've lost the thread.
Yeah,
you've lost what we're doing here. Change it back. But I think the The other place that I'd say too, and we're seeing this some, is like design wise. I think design is still a bit overhyped. We see good results from it. And I think it'll get there. I mean, honestly, like we've got this quarterly cycle that we're seeing where new models are being dropped. So in 6 months, it'll probably be a lot better. But I think even the design side it's probably not as far as people think.
No.
It's easy to sort of like spit out something for LinkedIn. But then like when you really drill into the details and you've got a product and you want to make sure that product looks exactly right and everything else, like it's really tough to get it there. It just is still.
Yeah, I think that we're a little off when it comes to, designing emails. And still to this day, everybody, fully designed picture emails are bad. You need your text to not live in a picture for various reasons. Just don't do that.
It's true. At least follow the 80-20 rule. At least follow the 80-20 rule.
We've been pushing off talking about Raleon for too long. I met Nathan a little over a month ago, and he, in my opinion, has one of the best tools in the e-commerce space that's using AI to solve a very specific problem the right way, and it's not a glorified ChatGPT wrapper.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, let's talk about how brands can use products like Raleon and have it, run their email marketing and just make their lives easier.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you described what we do really well. I mean, it's that. So we think of it as like an AI retention team. So it's an extension of, the internal team. And what we've found in talking with a lot of founders, and even agencies, is folks more and more are moving away from like this point solution, right? Of like, oh, like I just want this thing that does this little piece, like say copywriting. Because at the end of the day, like none of us have enough time anyway to grow our businesses. So it's sort of hey, like how do we get the end-to-end job done? So that's what we focused on from an email marketing standpoint. So it's everything from campaign planning. So it's hooked into your Klaviyo, it's hooked into your Shopify. It actually has our own AI segmentation and stats and everything about it. So when you ask it for something like, hey, find me my most overstocked product and come up with 5 campaign ideas that I can run next week for it that don't involve any promotions, you can literally give Raleon that ask. And it will look it up for you. It'll see what past performance, like what past campaigns worked really well. It'll, pick that particular product and, and give you the suggestion of it. It'll put together the campaigns overall. It uses our AI segmentation to even suggest the segments to send it to. So like it does a lot of this whole analysis process that takes hours, to do the analysis, to figure out the plans. It writes the copy for you. It puts it in the same email layout for you. And then depending on sort of the sophistication of the email, it'll actually generate the email design for you and load it into Klaviyo. So like, really, we're trying to build out that true end-to-end process that lets you go from an email a week or an email a month to 4 a week, with effectively the same amount of time spent, but even better results because of everything that's built in. And it learns, and it does the learning for you.
Back to the start of the conversation, that whole workflow automation part of it, it's, yes, you can do this with any AI you've access to, roughly the same stuff, but you are going to be copying and pasting stuff from A to B. You're going to be spending more time kind of doing those things that have been automated in this process, but also training the AI every time you open your browser or reset your browser to do the thing again is just going to be sunk costs with every time you're doing this. Whereas I think the investment versus the, what the result that you see from it is, it's there. It makes sense to me. I see the value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to your point, what we're doing, on the Raleon side, and most AI companies, it's not to say that you can't sort of do it yourself, but it's the same way with anything, right? I mean, like, yes, you could build it yourself, the same way that you could build a subscription app yourself, the same way that you could build a post-purchase app yourself, or a pop-up app and so on. Or, you can leverage sort of the benefit of folks that have been there before and really know what they're doing and are constantly sort of, using especially this cutting edge technology across many different surface areas and brands to go, oh, here's how we can create sort of an automated learning cycle. So that way, instead of, founders having to figure out, how do I do this for myself? What's the right prompt? How do I like pull in this past detail and get it in properly so it understands it? The system's sort of constantly doing that itself anyway and constantly getting improved overall. And as a result, you're able to kind of focus on what you really want, which isn't sending emails or creating emails to send. It's growing the business. And, that's what we want folks to be able to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Nathan, is there anything I didn't ask you about today that you think would resonate with our audience?
I think one of the things that we hear often that we maybe didn't talk a lot about is there's a lot of folks that I think get scared that AI is going to replace them, whether that's on the agency side or whether that's on the brand side. And I think even a lot of brands at times, are like, oh my gosh, well, like there's all this AI stuff. I'm just going to go replace my agency. And I'd say one thing there is I'd be like, don't burn like all the bridges at the same time, right? I mean, there's an element of, like we were saying towards the beginning, like there still needs to be pilots for this stuff. I mean, when you think about like what AI is doing, it's handling the tactical stuff, and more it's going to handle the sort of like tactical elements of, finding the right segment, doing the analysis, writing the copy, and so on. But like there's still the strategy that has to be present there, and I think agencies, and even senior marketers and things like that are still really valuable to guide that overall strategy. So I think the one thing I'd say is, like, will there be an impact? Is often a question of like, oh, all these jobs are going to be lost. Like, is there going to be sort of an impact there? Absolutely. Like, are we seeing that even with the brands that use us and the agencies that use us, where they're hiring less because of us? 100%. But like, they still need that strategic person. They still need people on the team to guide the systems. And that applies to Raleon and to whatever other, additional AI tools that start to get rolled out across the board. So that's maybe one thing I'd add there.
Absolutely, Nathan. Now, if people listen to this episode and they're like, this sounds great, where do they go to learn more? What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, they can go to our website, Raleon.io. I'd say if they mention you, we're even happy to give them a little bit of a discount benefit or run them through a special onboarding. So I'd say come to the site or hit me up on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I mean, I respond to all that stuff well too, but those are kind of the three core places that you can find us.
Awesome. Now we'll make sure to link to those things in the show notes, along with that list of kind of large language models that you guys have kind of ranked for certain strengths and weaknesses. Nathan, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today.
Chase, man, thanks for having me.